Hey gamers, inflation. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a big deal going on, especially with like everything going up in price, groceries, gas. But a thing I want to talk about specifically is in terms of how it relates to gaming, because I feel like a lot of people misunderstand inflation. So I want to talk about it and how it relates to gaming and why I think most people are kind of misinterpreting what this means for us as the consumers. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Now, I should say, obviously, I'm not an economic scientist or whatever. I don't know the specifics for sure, so I might get some things wrong, but I did try my best to do as much research as I could on this topic, because I feel like a lot of people say this about inflation when it comes to gaming. You see people talk about how, oh, inflation is becoming too big for gaming, and then you see other people say, what are you talking about? Games were more expensive back in the day. This is the case where I mentioned this in my other video, like yesterday or something, where I feel like there's two people arguing about something and they don't listen to each other at all. Now, I talked about this topic briefly in some other videos, like in the Is the Video Game Crash Imminent video, and I think the Ubisoft failing video as well, where I kind of talked about inflation and how lots of people say, oh, inflation is not that bad, In fact, it's better than it was before. But here's the thing. When people talk about inflation, I feel like people don't talk about, one, the fact that money worked differently back in the day, Wages were different, jobs had different pay rates. It was like a different environment back in the day compared to now. And then two, a thing that people completely forget to mention is the fact that, yes, technically video games are cheaper than they were in the past. Like, if you see ads back in the day, some games were like $100, or like it just varied across the board. Like, there wasn't a standard video game price until I believe the PS2 Xbox days. So there's that. There were some games actually that were basically the same price as they were today. But there's also another thing that people don't have in mind, and that is being DLC, microtransactions, where you see prices technically stay the same and be cheaper than they were in the past. You gotta realize that a lot of companies are spending a lot of money on games, which is another big thing. Budgets are increasing for games, and because of that, companies are like, oh, we gotta make more money, and to do that, we gotta do DLC, we gotta do microtransactions, not just for free-to-play games, which would make more sense, which we do see still, but we see this with EA and their sports games, whatever, where there's always DLC and microtransactions. You see other companies do stuff like digital deluxe editions that are $10, $20 more, and you do get the benefit, quote unquote, of playing early, by a few days sometimes, or extra content. But overall, it's just another way to get more money from the consumer, and I think that's a lot of people don't pay that in mind, because if you add all that up, the microtransactions, DLC, I feel like it is really close to how it was back in the day, and I think that's the thing people don't have in mind, and it really bugs me. And I wanted to bring up this topic again for a full dedicated video, because I saw recently a article or whatever talking about GTA 6, saying how some people in the gaming industry are hoping that GTA 6 costs like $100 to make up for the cost of its development, and so other companies can follow suit. Think about that, $100 for GTA 6. Now, do I think this is going to happen? No, but it does have me a little bit worried, because, prices went up recently for from $60 to $70, and I already don't think that was a good idea. Obviously, I'm a poor boy, I don't have that much money, but seeing that the prices stayed consistent across multiple years, and then it went up to $70, and most games don't really deserve that $70 mark. The only games I think deserve that are Tears of the Kingdom, which Nintendo randomly started doing $70 for that one game, and that's it. They'll probably continue it for the Switch too, but there's that, because it's like a 100-hour game, and that's it. I think there's other games that are pretty good length and also do deserve that price, but I'm just not thinking of them right now. But overall, most games that are $70, Like they feel like they don't deserve it. They're only like less than 15 hours, 10 hours, and like this is the thing where we're, as consumers, we're used to trying to value money in terms of length, game length, which you could say that's a bad thing, because that shouldn't determine how much money is. It should be determined by how good it is or how big of a budget it has or whatever. But that's just how we do things. That's just how most people do things. We see like, okay, this game is like 20 hours, it should be worth $20 or something like that. For example, it should not be worth $70. And in a way, I don't blame people for doing that. I do it myself. And especially when you see games that go on sale, I feel like most games that you're interested in that are $70 or even $60 or whatever, you would rather just wait for it to go on sale, to experience it, at a lower cost, So yeah, this article thing that talked about GTA has me a little bit worried because, it is GTA. People have been waiting for a new Grand Theft Auto game for a while, and if Rockstar does do this, there will 100% be a lot of people buying it, and so I feel like it will be a bad thing for the industry to have $100 games again. And this is kind of off topic, but I just want to bring up that I find it so annoying that we have games that are $70, and if this report goes through, games that will be $100 with GTA 6, but we see that, and it's probably going to be the same price on the digital storefronts, and that's so dumb, especially because you're not producing anything like in a disc or cartridge or whatever. You're not producing anything physically, so why is the cost so high? Because reasons. You do see some cases where the digital storefront games are cheaper than the physical games, but it's so far in between. It should be a more commonplace. Is this related to the inflation thing? Kind of, but at the same time, I kind of just wanted to ramble about it. Anyway, going back to my original point. Like, I hate this argument that, oh, come on, it would still be cheaper than the past because, again, money worked differently back then, and like the budgets, and there's also DLC, microtransactions. GTA 6 is gonna have, like the shark cards or whatever that GTA 5 has, right? So, that's gonna happen. And if it's $100, oh my god, I think that's a bad taste for like gaming, because you see developers trying to scrounge up as much money as they can from consumers, and consumers are okay with it. We make a big deal sometimes, and sometimes they do listen, but most of the time when people make a big deal of something, nothing ever happens. Like the only thing I remember that it kind of worked was Star Wars Battlefront 2, where the loot boxes were kind of backtracked a little bit because of consumer feedback. But like in terms of like other stuff, like when DLC and microtransactions started happening in the past, like people argued about it, but now you see it in commonplace in multiple games that most people are used to it, and that's very sad. Like, I think all of this is related to an imminent video game crash, which I made a whole video talking about like 10 months ago. But like, I do not think this bodes well for the gaming industry, and it really sucks to see, because gaming has never been a cheap hobby at all, but it used to be a bit more affordable. But nowadays, I feel like they're trying to go back to the 90s days, where it's trying to go up and up and up. We used to be going downwards to get video games cheaper, to get more people to experience this amazing hobby, because there's so many good games out there that, are just pretty expensive now. Especially because of the cost of production, heck, it's not even just related to games like in general. It's related to consoles, handheld PCs. Why are those things so expensive? You also see, like, if you have a PC, why are the video cards so much expensive? Also the PS5 Pro, I will not stop talking about that because that is stupid. That's like $700 with the disc drive, and like the stand is like $830 or something. Like, why is it so much? And the reason is because people will buy it. And that's a thing I even forgot to mention. I feel like companies use inflation as an excuse excuse, at least internally, to justify these higher prices, but it's really just because consumers will buy it. You know, I'm sure companies are like, oh my god, this video card is more expensive because inflation has taken a toll, but no, it's because people will buy it. I think that's just like kind of a cover up, you know, but that's a whole other topic for another day, I feel. But overall, going back to what I was originally saying, I just kind of wanted to complain about the inflation argument because I feel like it's thrown around like, oh come on, it's not that bad as it was in the past, and you're technically right. But at the same time, I think you're not considering things from the angles that I talked about, the DLC, microtransactions, you know. And when I say DLC, I mean like useless DLC. When it's actually good DLC, like it adds content and it's relatively cheap, you know, I'm fine with that. But for DLC, like especially like day one DLC, where it's like, oh, get an extra costume, or what Atlas does, get extra personas from these past games for like $20, like that's not good. But when it's actually like story-based content, I'm fine with that, you know. I think that's cool. But yeah, it's just a muddy thing in the gaming industry now, and it sucks to see the inflation argument people throw around, even though it's not really true, at least not technically, you know. But I guess you could say the same thing about other inflation things, you know, like groceries, you know. Again, I don't know if I'm saying any of this right. I might have gotten some stuff wrong, but I try my best to do a bit of research. So yeah, let me know what you think about inflation. Do you think that I am completely wrong about this, or do you think I actually am onto something? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, play some Xenoblade, and I'll catch you all next time for more. Peace, bye everyone.